The large meeting hall of the Galactic Council was filled with angry voices. Hundreds of different alien species sat in their special seats, all talking at the same time. The air was thick with the smell of different atmospheres that each species needed to breathe. Ambassador Wu from Earth sat in the back corner. He was a quiet man with gray hair and calm eyes. While everyone else was shouting and waving their arms, tentacles, or claws, he just sat there watching. His hands were folded on the table in front of him. The Zephyrian ambassador was the angriest of all. His purple tentacles were moving like angry snakes. He had been trying to make a deal with the Korthak Mining Company for 3 years. The Korthaks were a violent alien race that looked like giant lizards with sharp teeth. They owned many planets where they dug up valuable metals and gems. They ate him, the Zephyrian screamed. They ate Ambassador Vex right in front of everyone. He was just trying to talk about peace. The other aliens in the room made shocked noises. Some gasped, others clicked their tongues, and a few made sounds that humans could not even hear. The council speaker was a tall, thin alien with blue skin. She hit her metal staff on the floor to make everyone quiet. Order. Order in the council. Slowly the noise died down. The speaker looked around the room with her 3 eyes. We need new volunteers to talk to the Korthaks. Who will go? Right away, many hands, claws, and tentacles shot up into the air. The Altarian Empire volunteers are best logic masters, called out a crystal-like being that looked like it was made of living glass. We can solve any problem with pure reason. No, said a floating gas cloud that somehow had a voice. The Nebulan Collective should go. We can read their emotions and find what they really want. Emotions mean nothing to warriors, roared a large, furry alien with 4 arms. The Thanari Empire knows how to speak to fighters. We understand honor and strength. More and more aliens offered to help. Each one was sure they had the right way to deal with the Korthaks. The noise in the room got louder again as they all argued about who should go first. Ambassador Wu just sat quietly and watched. He took out a small notebook and wrote down what each species was saying. His face showed no emotion at all. The council speaker hit her staff again. Very well. The Altarians will go first, then the Nebulans, then the Thanari. We will try each approach until we find success. What about Earth? Called out someone from across the room. Will the humans send diplomats too? All eyes turned to Ambassador Wu. He looked up from his notebook slowly. The room became very quiet. Everyone was waiting to hear what he would say. Wu stood up. He was not very tall compared to most of the aliens in the room, but something about the way he moved made everyone pay attention. We will wait, he said in a calm voice. We want to see how this develops first. Some of the aliens laughed. Others whispered to each other. A few shook their heads in disappointment. Typical humans, muttered the Altarian. Always too scared to take action. They probably do not have any good diplomats, said the Nebulan Cloud with a voice like wind. Their species is still very young. Maybe they just do not care about this problem, added the Thanari warrior. Ambassador Wu heard all of this, but his face did not change. He sat back down and continued writing in his notebook. He seemed to be writing down everything that was said, even the rude comments about humans. The council speaker nodded. Very well. The humans will wait. Meeting dismissed. As the aliens began to leave, many of them walked past Ambassador Wu. Some ignored him completely. Others gave him strange looks. A few even laughed quietly as they passed. One alien stopped at his table. It was Ambassador Krell from the Vorthan Federation. The Vorthans looked like tall, thin humans but with silver skin and no hair. Are you sure about this, Wu? Krell asked quietly. The Korthaks have already killed 12 diplomats from different species. This is getting very dangerous. Ambassador Wu looked up at his old friend. They had worked together on many peaceful solutions over the years. Krell was one of the few aliens who really trusted humans. I am sure, Wu said softly. Sometimes the best action is to wait and learn. Krell frowned. But what if all these other species fail? What if the Korthaks keep killing diplomats? What if they start attacking innocent planets? Ambassador Wu closed his notebook and stood up. He looked directly into Krell's silver eyes. Then, he said very quietly, we will send our specialists. Specialists? Krell looked confused. What specialists? Humans do not have any special diplomatic units. Your military is tiny compared to ours. Ambassador Wu picked up his notebook and started walking toward the exit. As he passed Krell, he stopped for just a moment. We prefer to call them diplomats, he said with a small smile that did not reach his eyes. But they are very good at solving problems when normal talking does not work. Then he walked away, leaving Krell standing alone in the empty meeting hall. wondering what the human had really meant. Outside the building, Ambassador Wu looked up at the alien stars in the purple sky. Somewhere out there, the court hacks were getting ready to meet their first group of new diplomats. He pulled out a small communication device and pressed a button. "This is Wu," he said quietly. "Start watching them. I want to know everything." Then he walked away into the crowd of aliens, just another quiet human that nobody seemed to notice. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council meeting. The beautiful blue sun of the Council planet was setting as Ambassador Wu walked into the emergency session hall. The room was much quieter than before, but not in a good way. Many seats were now empty. The Altarian crystal beings had tried first. They sent their smartest logic masters to talk to the court hacks. These beings could solve any math problem in seconds and could think faster than computers. They believed they could convince the court hacks with pure facts and reason. The court hacks listened to them for exactly 10 minutes. Then they threw the Altarian ship into their home planet's sun. All 50 diplomats died in the flames. The logic masters never got a chance to use their brilliant minds. The Nebulan gas clouds went next. They were sure they could read the court hacks' emotions and find out what the lizard-like aliens really wanted deep in their hearts. The Nebulans were famous for solving fights by understanding feelings. The court hacks captured the Nebulan diplomats and put them in glass boxes. They used the gas beings as pretty lights for their dining hall. The Nebulans spent their last days glowing different colors while Korthak children laughed at them. Ambassador Wu sat in his usual corner seat. His notebook was much thicker now. He had been writing down everything that happened for months. Every failed mission. Every dead diplomat. Every new way the court hacks found to hurt people. The Vanari warriors had been sure they would succeed. They were big, strong aliens with 4 arms and thick fur. They understood fighting and honor. They thought they could talk to the court hacks like one warrior to another. The Vanari sent their best honor guard with their top diplomat. These were warriors who had never lost a battle. They wore beautiful armor and carried ancient weapons passed down for generations. The court hacks invited them to a special dinner to show respect. The Vanari were happy. Finally, someone was treating them with proper honor. They sat down at a long table covered with delicious-smelling food. Halfway through the meal, the Vanari diplomat realized he was eating his own honor guard. The court hacks had cooked them and served them as the main course. The diplomat tried to run, but he became dessert. The council speaker hit her metal staff on the floor, but her movements were tired and slow. She looked older than before. Her blue skin was pale and her 3 eyes looked sad. "We need more volunteers," she said quietly. "Who else will try?" The room stayed silent. No hands went up. No claws reached into the air. No tentacles waved around. An alien with purple fur finally spoke up. "My species cannot afford to lose any more diplomats. We only have 12 left." "The court hacks are not just killing our people," said another alien that looked like a walking tree. "They are playing with them first. They are having fun." "Maybe we should just give up," whispered someone from the back. "Maybe some problems cannot be solved with talking." The council speaker looked around the room desperately. Her eyes stopped on Ambassador Wu. He was writing in his notebook as usual, but this time he looked up when she stared at him. "Ambassador Wu," she said hopefully, "surely now Earth will send diplomats? We have lost over 100 beings. Entire species are refusing to help anymore." Wu closed his notebook slowly. He stood up and looked around the room. Many aliens were staring at him with tired, desperate eyes. "Not yet," he said simply. "Not yet." The council speaker's voice got higher with shock. "How many more must die? How many more species must suffer?" "We are still learning," Wu replied calmly. An Altarian survivor who had escaped the first mission stood up angrily. His crystal body was cracked and broken. "Learning? Learning what? How to watch others die while you do nothing." Other aliens began to mutter and whisper. Some sounded angry. Others sounded hurt. A few just sounded tired. "The humans are cowards," someone said loudly. "They never help anyone but themselves," said another voice. "Maybe they are working with the court hacks," suggested a third alien. Ambassador Wu listened to all the angry words without changing his expression. He opened his notebook again and wrote down what they were saying. This seemed to make some aliens even more angry. Ambassador Krell from the Vorthan Federation stood up. His silver skin was darker than before, like he had not been sleeping well. "Wu, my friend, please. I have known you for many years. I know humans are not cowards. Why will you not help us?" Wu looked at his old friend. For just a moment his calm mask slipped. Krell could see something cold and dangerous in the human's eyes. Then it was gone. "Because," Wu said quietly, You have not tried everything yet. What else is there to try? Krell asked desperately. We have used logic, emotion, honor, fear, gifts, threats, everything. No, Wu said, shaking his head. You have tried everything your species understand. But there are other ways to solve problems. The council speaker was getting frustrated. What other ways? What are you talking about? Ambassador Wu packed up his notebook and started walking toward the door. As he reached the exit, he turned around one last time. When you have truly tried everything, he said in a voice so quiet that everyone had to strain to hear, when every option is gone and hope is dead, then call us. We will send our specialists. He walked out, leaving behind a room full of confused and frightened aliens. Outside, Wu pulled out his communication device again. This is Wu. Are they ready? A voice answered immediately. Yes, sir. Team 7 is standing by. Good. It should not be much longer now. The blue sun finished setting, and the alien world became dark. The emergency alarm was screaming through the Galactic Council building. Red lights flashed in every hallway as aliens ran in panic. Ambassador Wu walked calmly through the chaos, his notebook tucked under his arm. He had been expecting this call. The news had come in just 1 hour ago. The court hacks were no longer just killing diplomats for fun. They had moved to the next step of their plan. 3 entire planets had gone silent. Not destroyed, silent. The communication signals just stopped. When the Council's investigation ships arrived at these worlds, they found something horrible. The planets were still there. The cities were still standing. But all the people were gone. Millions of beings had simply vanished. Then the court hacks sent a message to the Council. It was short and simple. We took them. We will work them in our minds until they die. Send more diplomats if you want to talk about it. The Council meeting hall was packed with frightened aliens. Many species that had never attended before were now here, begging for help. Their people were trapped on those silent worlds, digging in dark tunnels for Korthak masters. The council speaker looked terrible. She had not slept in days. Her blue skin was gray with stress and her 3 eyes were red from crying. When she spoke, her voice shook. We are calling an emergency vote, she announced. For the first time in our history, we must consider activating the ancient war protocols. Shocked gasps filled the room. The war protocols had been written thousands of years ago but never used. They were created for situations where peaceful solutions were impossible, where talking had completely failed, where only force could save innocent lives. But we are a peaceful council, cried out an alien that looked like a giant butterfly. We have never started a war. The court hacks have already started it, replied the council speaker sadly. They are enslaving entire worlds. Our people are dying in their minds every day. Who will fight? Asked a nervous voice from somewhere in the crowd. Most of our species do not have strong militaries. We are diplomats and scientists, not warriors. The room fell silent. It was true. Most species in the council had small defense forces, but nothing that could fight a war against the violent court hacks. They had spent centuries focusing on peace, not preparing for battle. The Vanari Empire could send warriors, suggested someone hopefully. The Vanari have already lost half their honor guard to Korthak cooking pots, replied another voice darkly. What about the Vorthan Federation? They have good ships. Vorthan ships are built for exploration, not fighting. The court hacks would destroy them easily. One by one, every major species was discussed and dismissed. Their armies were too small, their weapons too weak, or their experience too limited. The court hacks had been fighting wars for thousands of years. Most council species had been at peace for just as long. Ambassador Krell stood up slowly. His silver skin looked almost white with worry. There is one species we have not discussed, he said quietly. Every eye in the room turned to look at Ambassador Wu. The human sat in his corner seat, writing in his notebook as always. He seemed completely calm while everyone else was panicking. The humans? The council speaker sounded confused. But they have barely any military at all. Their space force is tiny compared to ours. And they have never volunteered to help with the court hacks, added an Altarian survivor bitterly. They just sit and watch while we die. Ambassador Wu finally looked up from his notebook. He saw hundreds of alien faces staring at him with desperate hope mixed with anger and doubt. Some believed humans were cowards. Others thought they were too weak to matter. A few worried they might be secretly working with the enemy. Wu stood up slowly. The room became completely quiet. Even the emergency alarms seemed to get softer. The Terran Federation, he said in his calm, quiet voice, formally requests permission to deploy our specialized diplomatic unit. The silence stretched for long seconds. Then confused whispers started spreading through the crowd. Diplomatic unit? The council speaker looked puzzled. We need warriors, not more diplomats. Specialized how? Asked Ambassador Krell. What makes them different from regular diplomats? Other aliens began asking questions all at once. How many are there? What special training do they have? Why did you not send them before? Ambassador Wu waited for the noise to die down. When it was quiet again, he spoke just one sentence. They are very good at solving problems when normal talking fails. The council speaker shook her head in frustration. Ambassador Wu, this is not the time for mysterious words. We need clear answers. What exactly can your specialists do that our diplomats could not? Wu looked directly at her with eyes that suddenly seemed much older and more dangerous than before. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet that everyone had to lean forward to hear. They can make people change their minds. How? Demanded the Altarian survivor. The Courthacks ate our logic masters. They turned our emotion readers into light decorations. They cooked our honor guards. What can humans possibly do that we could not? Ambassador Wu picked up his notebook and started walking toward the door. As he reached the exit, he turned back one final time. We can make them want to surrender. With that, he walked out, leaving behind a room full of confused and desperate aliens who had no choice but to hope that the quiet humans knew something the rest of the galaxy did not. The council speaker called for the vote. It was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, the war protocols were activated. And for the first time in months, Ambassador Wu allowed himself a small, cold smile as he walked down the empty hallway. The real diplomacy was about to begin. Captain Lee floated in the cold darkness of space, 3 days away from the Korthak homeworld. His special suit made him invisible to their sensors. Around him, 11 other humans drifted like ghosts between the stars. They had been falling toward the planet for 72 hours without using any engines. Far below them, a small diplomatic ship approached the Korthak planet. It looked exactly like all the other ships that had carried doomed ambassadors to their deaths. The Korthacks watched it on their screens and laughed. Another group of stupid aliens coming to get eaten. Permission to land, the ship's pilot radioed to the planet. Come down, little snacks, replied the Korthak controller with cruel humor. We are hungry again. The Korthacks did not know that the diplomatic ship was empty except for its pilot. They did not see the 12 invisible humans who had already passed through their detection grid. Their sensors could spot massive warships from light years away, but they missed the tiny heat signatures of human bodies wrapped in advanced stealth technology. Captain Lee checked his wrist display. His team was spread out across the planet's upper atmosphere. Sergeant Park was drifting toward the communication center. Corporal Han was aimed at the orbital defense platform. The twins, Min and June, were heading for the power stations on opposite sides of the main continent. Lee had studied the Korthacks for months while other species were getting eaten. He knew their technology, their habits, and most importantly, their weaknesses. The lizard-like aliens were very good at fighting direct battles, but they had never faced an enemy that refused to fight fairly. The Korthacks expected their enemies to challenge them openly. Every species that came to their world announced themselves, requested meetings, and followed diplomatic rules. That was why those species died. They played by Korthak rules in a Korthak game. Humans played by different rules. At exactly midnight on the Korthak homeworld, Sergeant Park landed silently on the roof of the main communication building. The guards below never saw him. His suit bent light around him like water, making him invisible even up close. Park pulled out a small device no bigger than his thumb. It looked harmless, like a simple metal box. But inside was technology that could rewrite computer systems from a distance. He attached it to the communication array and activated it. Within seconds, every Korthak radio, television, and computer network began playing the same thing: human classical music. Soft, peaceful songs that the violent aliens had never heard before. The Korthacks tried to turn it off, but the music kept playing. Their technicians ran around in panic, unable to understand what was happening. At the same time, Corporal Han reached the orbital defense platform. This massive space station protected the Korthak homeworld with energy weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The station was heavily guarded and surrounded by force fields. Han did not try to attack the station. Instead, he floated past it to a small maintenance satellite that nobody was watching. He attached another tiny device to the satellite's computer core. This device began sending new instructions to the defense platform. The platform's weapons slowly turned away from space and pointed down at the planet below. The targeting computers locked onto Korthak military bases instead of incoming ships. The weapons did not fire, but now they were ready to shoot their own people if anyone gave the wrong command. Below on the planet's surface, twins Min and June reached the power stations at the same moment, even though they were on opposite sides of the world. They worked in perfect sync, having trained together since childhood. Min attached her device to the main power grid. June did the same at his location. Together, their devices took control of the planet's entire electrical system. Lights began turning on and off in patterns. Factory machines started and stopped randomly. Even the gravity generators in Korthak buildings began fluctuating, making the aliens feel dizzy and sick. The Korthak leadership was in chaos. Nothing was working properly, but they could not find any enemies to fight. Their sensors showed no attacking ships. Their guards reported no intruders. Yet somehow, invisible ghosts were taking apart their entire civilization piece by piece. Captain Lee landed in the capital city's government district. Around him, his team was systematically disabling every system that kept Korthak society running. But Lee had a different job. While his people took control of machines, he was going to take control of minds. The Korthak Supreme War Chief lived in a fortress at the center of the city. The building was surrounded by walls, guard towers, and energy shields. Thousands of soldiers protected it. It was supposed to be the safest place on the planet. Lee walked through the front gate. The guards did not see him. His stealth suit made him invisible, and his movement dampener made him silent. But more than that, Lee understood something about Korthaks that other species had missed. They were bullies who had never faced real predators. Lee moved through the fortress like a shadow with teeth. He did not kill the guards, that would have created alarms. Instead, he used small devices that made them fall asleep. One by one, the fortress guards simply lay down and began snoring peacefully. By morning, the Supreme War Chief woke up to find himself completely alone. His communication systems were playing alien music. His weapons were pointing at his own cities. His power grid was flickering like a broken toy. And his entire army of guards was taking a very long nap. For the first time in his violent life, the Supreme War Chief felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Somewhere in his fortress, invisible predators were waiting. And unlike every other species that had come to his world, these hunters had not come to talk. They had come to teach him what it felt like to be prey. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived on the Korthak homeworld. The Supreme War Chief Grak sat alone in his command bunker, deep underground beneath his fortress. The massive lizard-like alien had not slept properly in days. His yellow eyes were bloodshot and his claws shook as he tried to eat his morning meal. Above him, his once mighty empire was falling apart in the strangest way possible. Nothing worked anymore, but nothing was destroyed either. It was like invisible spirits were playing with his civilization, turning it into a broken toy. The communication system still played that soft human music 24 hours a day. Grak's technicians had tried everything to stop it. They had rebuilt computers, replaced entire networks, even destroyed radio towers. But the music kept playing from sources they could not find. His orbital defense platforms had turned into a joke. The massive weapons that once protected his world now pointed down at his own cities. Every time his engineers tried to fix them, the weapons would slowly turn back toward the planet. It was like the machines were being stubborn on purpose. The power grid flickered constantly. Lights went on and off in patterns that almost seemed like signals. Factory machines started and stopped randomly. Even the gravity generators made people feel sick and dizzy. His scientists could not explain any of it. But the worst part was his army. Every single day, more guards would simply fall asleep and not wake up. They were not dead or injured, they were just sleeping deeply and peacefully. His doctors could not figure out how to wake them up. Now most of his mighty fortress was filled with snoring soldiers. Grak had sent search teams to find the intruders. The teams would leave in the morning and be found sleeping by the road that evening. He had offered huge rewards for information about the invisible enemies. Everyone who tried to help him ended up taking very long naps. The Supreme War Chief was alone in his bunker with just 2 guards who were still awake. He was the ruler of a sleeping empire, protected by weapons that would not obey him, in a fortress full of dreams. The bunker door opened. Grak looked up, expecting to see one of his guards. Instead, a human walked into the room like he owned the place. The alien was smaller than Grak, with dark hair and calm eyes. He moved without making any sound, like a shadow that had learned to walk. "Where are my guards?" Grak snarled, showing his sharp teeth. "Sleeping," Captain Lee replied simply. He sat down in the chair across from Grak without being invited. They looked tired. Grak's claws scraped against the metal table. "You are the ghost that has been destroying my world." "Destroying?" Lee looked around the bunker with curious eyes. I do not see any destruction. Your buildings still stand. Your people are still alive. Your machines still work. Nothing works. Grak roared. My weapons point the wrong way. My power fails. My soldiers sleep forever. Everything works perfectly, Lee corrected him calmly. They just work for me now instead of you. The Supreme War Chief started to stand up, his massive frame towering over the small human. Lee did not move or look worried. He just waited. Grak sat back down. For the first time in his life he felt like prey instead of a predator. What do you want? Grak asked, his voice quieter now. Lee pulled out a small data pad and placed it on the table between them. I want you to sign this. Grak looked at the device suspiciously. What is it? A peace treaty. You will release all the slaves from the 3 planets you captured. You will stop strip mining inhabited worlds. You will submit to Galactic Council oversight for all future activities. And if I refuse? Lee's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Then my people will continue their current diplomatic mission. Your people? Grak looked confused. How many humans are there? On your planet right now? 12. Grak stared at the human in shock. 12? Only 12 of you destroyed my entire empire? We did not destroy anything, Lee repeated patiently. We simply helped your empire take a nap until you were ready to listen to reason. The Supreme War Chief's mind raced. His armies numbered in the millions. His space fleet had thousands of warships. His empire controlled dozens of worlds. And 12 humans had made it all useless in 3 weeks. How? Grak whispered. You fight like animals, Lee explained simply. All noise and fury and direct attacks. We fight like humans. We think, we plan, we adapt. We turn your strengths into weaknesses. Grak looked at the data pad again. What happens if I sign this? Your people wake up. Your machines start working normally. Your orbital defenses protect you again instead of threatening you. Life goes back to normal, except now you follow council rules. And if I do not sign? Lee was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was so soft that Grak had to lean forward to hear him. Then you learn what happens when humans stop being diplomatic. The Supreme War Chief had ruled through fear his entire life. He understood threats and violence and shows of strength. But this quiet human scared him more than any roaring warrior ever had. Lee had not shouted or waved weapons or made big speeches. He had simply taken everything away so gently that Grak barely noticed until it was too late. The human had turned the Korthak Empire into a sleeping child's toy. With shaking claws, Grak picked up the data pad and pressed his thumb to the signature area. The treaty was signed. Wise choice, Lee said, standing up. The council will be pleased. As the human walked toward the door, Grak called out, Will your people leave now? Lee paused and looked back with a small smile that did not reach his eyes. We were never here, he said. Then he walked out, leaving the Supreme War Chief alone with his new reality. Within an hour, Korthak soldiers began waking up all across the planet. The music stopped playing. The machines worked normally again. But everyone knew that invisible human diplomats were still out there somewhere, watching and waiting. The galaxy had learned a new rule: when all else fails, call the humans. Because human negotiations always end with signed agreements.